This is Fortnite OG. However, just a few months ago, this was Fortnite OG. And a year before that, this was Fortnite OG.
This is so weird! Look at this!
Fortnite OG in 2023 was such a success that it became a permanent addition to the game. However, after some issues,
What did they do to the grass?
some people are quick to claim that the mode is a failure. Well, despite that, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case at all. I love that original era of Fortnite back in Chapter 1 with all of my heart, fell in love with the game back in Season 5, and I'm going to break down exactly what's going on here at the start of our 2-year trip back to our childhood island. That feels weird to say childhood island. Fortnite isn't my Is Fortnite our childhood? If you want to support me, you know the drill. Code CHUGACHUG, hashtag epic partner. A lot of people have claimed that OG isn't accurate enough, so why don't we break down the facts that we have here and see if that's true. The permanent OG mode that we have right now is currently intended to have modern Fortnite quality of life stuff, including sprinting, sliding, and mantling, the entire old map, the entire old loot pool, as close to the OG stats on weapons without being broken, the OG art style, kind of, more on that later, the OG models, OG sound effects, and OG live events. Now let's compare this to 2023's Season OG. How much of this did that have? It still had the modern quality of life stuff. It had the entire old Season 5 map, which eventually got a few additions from later on seasons. It got a Chapter 1 loot pool with weapons changing from Season 5 to X, although never being exactly the same. Some stats were similar to Chapter 1, although not being close to the exact same. The OG art style, it just didn't have fog, and they had volumetric storm clouds. No OG weapon models outside of the key art, no OG sound effects, and it didn't really have OG live events, but it did have a shortened version of the end event, which was tacked onto the Big Bang event. Now let's go in depth. I mentioned art style and models earlier. That is one problem with the current OG mode. As of this mode entering Chapter 1 Season 2, Epic kinda made a mistake and somehow managed to add Chapter 5 grass to the map instead of Chapter 1. I don't know how that happens. I'm not Epic Games. It was an accident. They are aware of it, and it will be fixed eventually. When the mode launched, there were actually quite a few weapons that didn't even have the correct Chapter 1 models. However, this was improved upon in Season 2, and will likely be improved upon again by Season 3. And at that point, we should have all the old models back in the game, and old icons. Another thing people talk about is movement, and I want to touch up on it a little bit. Putting the animations aside for a second, I think it's a really good thing that they kept the movement mechanics that they did. Everyone loved them back in the OG season, and I know some people would prefer to have them turned off, but I think it's healthier to have them turned on. I mean, they do count as quality of life, even though they technically are mechanics. Picture this. You're gliding into Clock Tower. You want to land right on that window and get into that chest easily, but you're ever so slightly, maybe like a pixel too short. What do? You mantle onto the window. That's quality of life, fixing a small annoyance for the sake of making your experience better. And like I said, some people say that they want it removed because it caters too much to newer players, but I think that's a good thing that it's more friendly to newer players. If you guys want the new mode to do well, I feel like intentionally scaring off newer players isn't exactly a good move. Now as for things that could be more accurate, I feel like the biggest one that is likely to happen is the UI. Think about it, if Ballistic and to an extent Reload can have their own custom UI, it would make perfect sense for OG to also get the same treatment. I feel like the main things that they really need is the Chapter 1 inventory and then the health bar UI, you know, where it's back in the middle. I mean, hey, they've already got the damage numbers down. That counts as UI, I guess. Now they just gotta get the rest of it. Another suggestion I have that I actually haven't seen anyone mention yet is the Victory Royale. We do have the original Victory Royale banner as of right now, and we likely will until Season 5, but we don't have the original Victory Royale sound effect. And I think that instead of hearing a, we could hear a, until about Season 5, where instead we'll hear more of a. Now, a big thing that I also see get brought up very often is movement animations. Now, I would love to have the old animations back, even as a fan of the new ones. But I also would totally get it if it's not the easiest thing to do. I don't know entirely how the game works, I'm gonna be honest, but I could totally see it being something that might be a little bit harder to implement, as well as it, you know, just not being their top priority. The way I see old movement animations, I definitely don't expect them to do it, but it would be a really pleasant surprise if they did do it. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say about accuracy. How about we go on to player count? Player count for OG kind of fluctuates a lot. Under normal circumstances, it usually ends up being the third most played game mode. Before Reload had its ranked reset recently, it actually would switch back and forth with it, fighting for second place, because they had very similar player counts. However, with the new season of Battle Royale coming out, OG and Reload's player counts did take a bit of a hit from before, which is something I'll get into a little bit later. And recently, we got news that we are going to have to say goodbye to ranked OG 0 build. Maybe not permanently, they did say it could come back in the future, but just for matchmaking health, it is going to get disabled, so rest in peace. I mean, fair enough, why would you want to play ranked OG 0 build? This map is not made for 0 build, especially season 2. I don't know. You guys are weird. Some people took that as people realizing that the OG mode itself isn't good, and that chapter 1 is very bad, and that people are nostalgia blind for liking it. First off, like what you like. Just want to throw that out there. But second off, that's just not true. I think that OG's player count not being super duper ultra high like it was in OG season can be boiled down to 3 different reasons. Reason 1, the average Fortnite player that is a fan of Battle Royale is likely going to constantly be switching between OG, Reload, Battle Royale, and maybe Ballistic. Player counts are just naturally going to be more spread out because of that. Reason number 2, the OG season only did last a month, so a lot of people were on more often to make the most of it before it disappeared. And reason number 3, this is the biggest reason that some people kind of forget we're only in season 2. I feel like chapter 1 itself doesn't really get super interesting until we hit around season 4 or 5, because that's when we start getting way bigger map changes, more unique and iconic weapons, and we're going to be getting live events too. That's part of the reason why season OG worked so well. It started right in the middle of season 5 instead of at the very start of Battle Royale in season 1. Dude, I'm telling you, once we hit that era in season 5, we get the desert biome. Whew. Oh, that'd be perfect. Now, there is some more stuff that I couldn't really find anywhere to fit in, so I'm just gonna shove it all right here. Here's some more things that people do have as complaints for this mode, and I wanted to break them down rapid fire style. Bots. I do agree. I feel like having too much bots is definitely a big problem, but I feel like that's more of a problem that Fortnite as a whole has instead of just OG. It's just, it took them getting added to OG for people to realize that. It doesn't feel rewarding killing a guy that plays like this. So, graphics. The graphics aren't the exact same as they are back then, and that's mainly in the lighting, but that's just because parts of it are recreated. The lighting in the OG mode was remade instead of reused, just so that it could support Lumen, along with like the trees and grass being remade so that it could support Nanite. And actually, I have a little bit of a tip for you guys. For those of you that don't know, if you turn both of those off, you get the original tree models from chapter 1, and the lighting does also end up resembling chapter 1 a lot more. So in other words, make your graphics worse, it looks more accurate. Storm circles. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this was the one change to OG that I didn't like. I much more prefer the original 9 zones that we had at the start of OG and that we had in chapter 1 over the more modern 12 zones that we have now. And the reason for that is because I feel like they close too gradually now, and the storm isn't as much of a threat as it used to be. These zones were designed with mid-game objectives in mind, which I did talk about in my Season 2 video, which, hey, go watch that if you want. But the thing is, OG Fortnite doesn't have mid-game objectives. It has supply drops, and that's really it. So having these more modern zones in there doesn't make the most sense to me. I will say though, OG season also had the modern zones, so I do think that these will become less of a problem as the seasons go on and we get more POIs and people are more spread out and people last longer, you know, the usual. But I still would like to see the old 9. Now, with all of that in mind, is OG a failure? Well, I already said it in the video, of course not. But I hope now you guys can see why. Most of this can be boiled down to the fact that this mode is still in its early phases, both because it's early Fortnite and because the mode is still relatively new. There, of course, is going to be a ton of stuff that needs ironing out. I mean, hey, think of Battle Royale when it first came out, which is what we're playing right now. It all makes sense now. We just got to keep giving out good feedback, preferably in a more nice way. We don't have to yell at everyone. Also, one thing I want you guys to keep in mind, even if something seems like it's an easy fix, if it isn't a massive gameplay issue or it isn't a main priority of Epic Games, it probably won't be fixed immediately, especially for a side mode. OG isn't the main thing, Battle Royale is. So the fact that the grass isn't fixed doesn't mean that it's never going to get fixed, but it might take a little bit longer for it to get fixed while they worry about other important things first. And besides, it's not like OG is the only mode with problems right now. I mean, hey, ranked reload in duos and squads has had the wrong skybox, as well as reload in general having double storm clouds since late chapter 5, yet no one seems to talk about that. So why don't we just enjoy our time? Let's enjoy our second full ride through OG together. And remember, it only gets better as time goes on. Okay, but hey, Epic, can we fix the placement of that big mountain in the back? You know the one. I know it's only slightly too far to the right, but hey, inches on our screen could be miles in universe, you know?